Hi, my name is Carlo Volpe,
And I'm Desmond Silva,
and
and
welcome to
welcome to
Centerville
Centerville
Voice.
Voice.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Centerville Voice. My name is Carlo, and this is my good friend Desmond. What's up, Des?
Much you, much Garlo.
Oh, it's going great, my friend. Everybody, welcome back to Centerville Voice. It's been a week. It's not a week. It's been a bit of a break.
Yes.
As the kids say, it's been a minute, but
Yes.
we're back, and let's get right back into it. Des, what's today's topic? Let's just start.
Yeah, we start off with what's been talked about the most, of course, the war in Israel and
Exactly.
Israel and Palestine, right?
Yeah.
So what can you do? Like you've got this has been something that's been happening for decades. I mean, let's be honest here. We've had peace treaty. With the peace treaty, we have had what's it? We've had Bill Clinton tried to resolve this issue. We've had, I think, Barack Obama tried to resolve this issue. We've had, well, even Bush and even Donald Trump. Every single president, except for Biden, has ever even tried to resolve this issue with every single president of the United States.
Yeah.
And we've come up with everything. It's been like up, down, up, down, up, down, and nothing but we've gotten
Yeah, I think
nowhere.
the last peace treaty was some Abraham Accords or something. Was that?
Okay, it is the Abraham. You're right. Yes.
So, but what happened? Like,
Yeah, so the last one that was done was the Abraham Accords. So
okay,
unfortunately, it's just falling apart because
it just happens. Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, some groups, whether there's terrorist activity or there's fighting back or whatever rebellions or whatever you call it, right? Like, it's going on, right? And
yeah,
like I want to say too, like we talked about earlier, like there's never a reason for war, obviously, but
no,
or sorry, there's never a reason for death. But when in war, what do? Right? When it's like, hey, you're defending yourself or you're defending from some ideological craziness, like
or
it's
you're
hard.
trying to like get back reclaim land that you lost, or
Exactly. That's a tough thing
and
too, right? Like land has been changed hands
lots of
infinitely
times, yeah,
over the time, right? That's how countries changed, right? So like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but like you said, like if we could somehow have a peace treaty or so, not, I don't know. The two-state solution, in my opinion, seems like the only solution because the other solution would be to wipe people out or to displace them and move them somewhere else again. And it's everybody's holy land, right? We have to
yeah.
remember that. It's
But the thing is,
everybody in the, like the three, Abrahamic religions. It's all of
yeah,
their home. So,
exactly. But the thing is, the problem here is that the unlike when Israel was first formed, right? And I think it was like like a few 100,000 people who were displaced from that area where it's current day Israel that were
wow.
Palestinian when the British took over, and then the Zionism movement came along, and don't get me wrong, like the whole it's because you're not pro-Zionist doesn't make you anti-Semitic, right?
Exactly. Or anti-Israel
You
even as a well, is that the fine line then? Because I get the idea of Zionism means that Israel deserves its own actual state.
Yeah, a
Jewish
land
people
for Israel and for
for
Israel
Jewish
Israelis and for Jewish folks and for Jews alone, right? Just Jews,
solely.
solely for Jews, right?
Okay.
Uh, because it's like and the thing is if you go further back, like I mean, before Israel was Israel, you had the land was occupied by the Canaanites, the Hittites, and a whole bunch of other ancient civilizations that the
Or the Romans,
Israelites
the
came along
Ottoman.
and they kicked out.
Um,
So then after the Israelites were there for quite some time, then the Romans occupied them, right?
okay.
And well, the Israelites were occupied. They had occupations from various different nations, like the Babylonians, right? And the Romans were, and I think
Byzantines before them, probably no.
yeah, what's it? The Philistines. I think at some point said
Byzantines too.
the
By-
Byzantine Empire. I'm sure about the Byzantines,
I
but
heard that Netanyahu talking about basically, yeah, like every organized or every
yeah,
empire
it's they've
is
been occupied by a whole bunch of other folks, and then the Romans
yeah.
kicked them out, right?
Okay.
That's so when the Romans kicked them out, the Druze were scattered. They went all the way even to Africa. That's how you end up with Ethiopian Jews, right?
Oh, okay. Is that like the,
Yeah,
the tribes kind of like, is that the
yeah.
story of the 12 tribes
Oh
or is
no,
that
they're
before that?
actually people who are Afro descent
Oh yeah.
who are Jewish,
Yeah, yeah, of
right?
course.
They have
But
the
is that
skull
the
cap and
story?
everything, but they're
Yeah.
not ethnically Jewish,
Well,
right?
yeah, what does ethnically Jewish
Ethnically
mean? Yeah.
They're ethnically they're not Israel like descendants of Israelites. They're descendants of Ethiopians,
Hmm.
right? And just like Christianity spread to Ethiopia, right? So
Oh
did
yeah.
Judaism, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so then what happened is after the Romans had it for a long time, it fell, then of course you had the fall of the Roman Empire, right? And then eventually the Muslims came around, right? And
Okay.
they took over the area. Now the Romans were the ones who named it Palestine,
Okay.
right? And then when the Muslims came, then they took over. It still renamed, they kept the name Palestine, right?
Okay. Got you. And that's the last point that a lot of people are pointing to right now, right?
Yes.
At the last point in history. But like you said, you can go back, and that's why it's so complicated because it depends on how far you go back.
Yeah.
Depends on whose land it was or who was there, and if Jewish people were there but they were under occupation, well, whose land is it anyway, right? The occupiers maybe
Yeah.
should be there, depending on
But the
who you ask.
Palestinians have been there for thousands of years,
Uh,
right?
well, and then the
Like
Romans have been there for thousands of years too. Let's be honest, before they
exactly,
fell.
like so
So
that it's like it's not that well they were about thousands, but like at
no,
least a
but
thousand
500
years.
years, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but yeah, at least a thousand years that like 500, a thousand years or something that they've been there, that the Muslims have been there.
Hmm.
And then they had that there was this one protection tax that they started charging the Jews and the Christians, right,
Okay,
that were living there. That's why they said the Crusades, right?
okay,
That's what resulted in
yes,
the Crusades. And so the Crusades were basically to take the Holy Land away from the Muslim and to free the Christian, right?
okay.
That was the idea. They
Because they
didn't
were
care
living
about the
under, well, they
Jews,
were
right?
being occupied. They were living under oppression.
Well, they were living under a type of oppression where it's like, okay, if you want to live here, you got to pay because you're not Muslim, you got to pay a
The tax.
tax,
Wow.
right? So, and there was a protection tax. So if you don't pay this tax, well, you're in trouble. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. So they had to pay an extra fee to live there, while as everyone else had, the regular taxes, right?
Yeah, that sounds like the mob. Mafia.
Uh, yeah, and they said that the whole idea of putting the yellow star on their arm, the Jewish arm, actually originated from the first Palestinians. Palestinians. That it was not the Nazis who thought that idea.
Wow, I didn't know that.
The idea
Oh,
of wearing a belt also came from them, right?
really?
For Christians who wore the belts, the leather belt,
To
that came
identify
from
as
that
Christian?
to identify as Christians, right?
Holy, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So that was there. Then you was it, but then they also after I guess, I think some as after some time eventually uh the Christians and Jews and Muslims were living just fine at some point, right?
Hmm.
Even but let's be honest, because the Crusades they failed, right?
Well, I mean, like I
And
said, I heard the other day too that I was reading that like Crusades was what the Pope's retaliation essentially, or the Pope's saying, "Hey, like not the Pope, but like, oh, I guess it was the Pope that sent out the Crusaders, right? Say what, reclaim the Holy Land, or not reclaim it, but to what, to stop this what was like,
stop what was happening there. So basically, that
okay,
the Christians wouldn't have to pay this tax. It was a fight.
yeah,
Like there probably was there was likely some persecution of Christians back in that whole land. But the thing is, there was also it was but the thing is that again, if they did, as long as they had that payment thing, they didn't have to worry about it.
wow,
And they
okay,
lived that way. But after the Crusades, they lived that like that for 100 years, for many
like what
generations. And then now
in
you
the
had,
tag, how,
and
what
then
do you mean by they lived? They lived like what
they
after
well they
Crusades?
lived in Palestine with no issue, right? And then
Okay,
what happened is Palestine became occupied, became part of the Ottoman Empire,
okay,
right? Um, and the name still was Palestine under the Ottoman Empire,
okay.
right? Think sometime I think around 19 I might be off by by a few years, but I think it was around 1948 or something like that. That
Oh, when they created,
the British, but after the British took over Palestine, it was sometime around 19, and there was also there was one guy, again I forgot his name, I'll put it up, but he had this whole idea of Zionism, a home for the Jews. And
yeah,
after what happened in World War II, the Allied forces decided that they're going to forcibly make a home for the Israelites in the land that they originally were from, right? which
That
is where
sounds.
modern day Palestine, where
Does
Palestine
that sound
was.
a little bit like a reserve?
It does in a well, it's kind of like a it does kind of sound like a reserve in a way, but it's a very strange reserve because you're displacing a whole bunch of other people
Other people, and then I'll make them
and then
autonomous,
fitting in another group of people in a reserve,
and then they made
in a
them the
reserve area.
power, and then they made them the power.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
so at first they said, okay, yeah, all the Jews can start coming in, right? And they can start living in Palestine.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, after a while, the whole idea of Zionism started to spread, and it now became very obvious that the Jews wanted to take over.
Wow.
There was a war, and then the Israelites managed to carve out a piece of land for themselves. But then they kept on expanding further and
Okay.
further and further, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
Now we're at the point where along the Gaza Strip, the people on the Gaza Strip literally live under prison-like prison-like conditions.
And the Gaza Strip is technically part of Palestine or Israel?
Well, it's a disputed territory,
Well, that
right?
specifically, that strip, okay,
That's
because
yeah.
shipping lanes like merit is that why? Because it's on the water,
I
or no?
yeah, I would say I believe it would have to you'd have to do with the fish with the shipping lanes and the port, and so the fact that it's close to the water because yeah, you would
Hmm.
have to be able to have ports and all that stuff. So that's trade, right?
Okay, yeah.
But it's the Gaza Strip has flipped sides several times, right?
Okay.
And it's unfortunate for the people who live along the Gaza Strip because their homes are constantly being destroyed, right? So you have people in Israel that there are people who are the Israeli army right now would come in, pull people out of their homes and destroy their homes, right? Which is and honestly, a lot of I mean, us be Canadians, we can't really hold the higher ground here because that happens to our First Nations folks like
It happened a
regularly.
lot. Yeah. Well, and then our government does
They know
terrible
better.
shit every single day. They do stupid. I mean, they violate our rights and everything too. But this is actual worse. This is like war. This is like you said, compared to the natives and everything, where we're actually
Yeah.
killing people. But so I want to see if we can put something that maybe will get people thinking and get people talking, like you said, about get people engaged. Like, is like there's a couple options out there, right? Proportional response, what does that mean? I don't think there's, if you want to get rid of some an actual group, right? Proportional response, what does that mean? But at the same time, what does get rid of that group really means?
But
Can you
yeah,
get
that
rid of,
means genocide.
well, and can you get, well, if they're terrorists, sure, but how do you get, you can't get only terrorists, that's a problem.
Yeah, but the thing is,
You
one
innocent
person's
people
terror.
will,
Yeah, but
yeah.
the thing is, well, to one person, you know, all this old saying, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Exactly. And then on top of that, innocent people who are going to get hurt anyway. So there's no, that's why it's so
Yeah.
hard to justify killing anybody,
Yeah,
right?
and Hamas is the thing is you have you know Prime Minister Benjamin was from Israel. He wants to he wants to basically end this thing out, and there are some I can understand a little bit because there's some similarities between is the Palestine Israel fighting that's going on and what happened in Sri Lanka like, up until like 2000 or like up until like 2010 around there,
Okay.
right? Uh, there was 30 years of war, civil war between the Tamils and the Sinhalese, more specifically the Tamil Tigers and the Sri Lankan government. Now,
Okay.
the big difference here, though, is that Tamils could the Tamils were not they were not prevented from going and living wherever they wanted to. They were not like walled off like the Palestinians were,
Mhm.
right? Here we have the Palestinians literally walled in, not allowed to have any type of trade with the outside world, right?
Yeah. What's the justification though? Like, what's the Israel's justification?
Well, they
Is
just
that
they,
they're
to keep
dangerous? They
them
want to keep them
buffered.
out?
Well, yeah, they
But
want to keep them in that area and make sure they don't get out. You know, um, of course, they're under the explanation from them is that they're trying to protect themselves, the
got
Israelites.
you. Always self-defense. Okay, I
Right. It's
see.
self they consider it self-defense, but then it's like you're imprisoning a bunch of innocent people as a
So
result of this.
so what
So
would be
like
the other solution? To be devil's advocate, what would be the other solution to just let Gaza expand or just let them be? Obviously, just let them be is one option, right?
Yeah, just let them be. But the thing is also they had to come to a point here where they stopped killing people and destroying homes and hospitals and all this stuff. Both sides are fairly guilty in my
Yeah,
books,
it sounds like it.
right? Because they're just killing each other like left and right. It's the Israeli government versus Hamas, and everyone else is like stuck in between,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Kind of like what happened in Sri Lanka. You
Yeah.
had the Sri Lankan government versus the Tamil Tigers, and everyone's stuck in between, right?
Well, in that case, then I think, I mean, I don't know anything, but I think that we're gonna have to have some sort of a treaty, some sort of a
Yeah.
peace negotiation. Hopefully, it doesn't get worse before it gets better. But are they gonna need? I mean, they're gonna need some countries to. They're gonna have to be countries to start aligning up together. That sucks because that makes it more dangerous, right?
That's the problem. But the problem is that sometimes outside interference, you don't know exactly which way it's going to go because
Well,
sometimes
for
it's good,
sure,
sometimes it's bad.
I
Like in
agree. I
Sri
mean,
Lanka, it was bad.
well, yeah. I mean, one argument could be stay out of it, but we've never stayed out of anything. We
Yeah,
didn't. The reason why Israel's there is because the West never stayed out of it in the first place.
yeah.
Right? So to ask the West now to stay out of it almost seems silly. Like, well, who are you asking to stay out of it?
Yeah.
The guy who started it all? Um,
And yeah, and then and Israel's prime minister, he's pretty much having the same attitude as President Rajapaksa, the former President Rajapaksa of Sri Lanka, the one who ended the war, was like, we're tired of this. We want to end this off. Get rid of the Tamil Tigers, right?
wow,
Which is and he gave full power to his generals and his admirals, saying, "I want I want the leader of the Tamil Tigers, Prabhakaran, eliminated,
wow.
right? Specifically him, right? Uh,
Did it
so
work?
yeah,
Wow.
they killed him where he stood. Let's
It
put it
is
that
the
way. They
jeez.
chased him all the way to the northern tip of Sri Lanka, his back to the Indian Ocean, and and then they just or that was the Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal. But the thing is, he was shot right on the beach along with
Wow.
a few of his other three people. But then what they did is
Wow.
they went a little bit further. They found his family
Oh shit.
and they killed his wife, his kids, and his parents.
Oh wow, that's a little bit extreme.
Well, the idea is that they didn't want them using them as
Oh,
okay. Look what they did, because what's going to happen is the tigers are going to come back and they're going to say, look what they did to your husband. Look what they did to your son. Look what they did to your father,
wow. See, that's so sad because there's no
right?
good answer there. Yeah.
And so to end it, they killed off their and
Mm.
innocent children. The kids are not responsible for anything their
No,
father
not
did.
at all. Of course.
It's horrible, but
So
that's what they did because they wanted to try and that's
yeah.
war,
Yeah, I know that's
right?
terrible. Exactly. That's so with this, let's try and wrap this up, make this one quick. What do you think maybe will happen in the next couple weeks? And then what do you think maybe the end result's gonna be? I don't know. Like,
If things keep on going the way they're going right now, I honestly think that if we can learn a little bit from history in terms of what happened in Sri Lanka, the Palestinian presence in in the Gaza Strip will probably have no well they will have no more self-governance, right?
wow.
At best. But well, best scenario would be that they come to a treaty and all that stuff. They allow people to
Yeah.
live there and they have no
Do
issues.
you see that likely to happen? Doesn't seem like it, eh?
At this point, because the way that Israel's prime minister is behaving, I don't think so,
Yeah,
right?
doesn't sound like it.
That would be the
But things
ideal
may change
scenario.
though. Things may change quick.
It
Who
could
knows?
change, but it's gonna be one of three things, right? It's gonna be either one, they come up with a treaty and they agree with it, which I don't think is gonna happen. Two, they get rid of Hamas, right? They go after Hamas itself, just like the Sri Lankan government went after the Tamil Tigers. They
Wow.
eliminate the organization and allow the Palestinians to live where they are, live in the land there, but under Israeli government rule.
Yeah. But again, the problem with that is that that's dirty because there's always going to be collateral damage.
Yeah, and then third option is
That's
that they
sad.
kick out the Palestinians altogether.
Where do you go though?
Well, that's the thing.
That's
And
the
where they
land.
are right now, I don't think it's going to be more. It's unlike what happened in Sri Lanka, the Tamils were not cornered. The civilian population wasn't really cornered by the Sri Lankan government forces, by the army, and basically said, okay, you have to stay in this wall. If you get out, we're going to kill you. Right? They never did that. Right? And a lot of Tamil people ended up going down to Colombo, which is the capital city, which is predominantly Sinhalese. Right?
Mm.
And so they and all the Sinhalese people, the worst that happened to them is that they were forced to hold Sri Lankan flags and wave the national flag rather than hold on to, and they got rid of the Tigers flag
Wow.
altogether,
Wow.
right? And they still have that parade commemorating the end of the war every single year around
Wow.
that same time, right?
Well,
But
I hope
they
it.
could
Yeah.
that could happen, right? But the thing is, Tamil people still live in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Jaffna is still predominantly Tamil, right?
Yeah.
In
Well,
the
yeah.
north.
That's why I
And
think, I mean, the most peaceful solution, of course, is just the ongoing, two-state solution. But how do
yeah,
you make it so people want to stop killing each other? That's the whole thing, right? And when Hamas has in their constitution essentially that they want to wipe out Israel, that's
yeah.
very hard. That's very hard to make peace with that right now, right? And then
And
you get
that's what the
Israel
Tigers
saying,
wanted, though. The
well, and then you
Tigers
get,
wanted a two-state solution.
yeah, they
They
did,
wanted a two-state solution too. But the government didn't say, the government just said, no, you're not going to do that, right?
yeah.
Because
But they
but
have,
because
but their history is a little
they
different,
want to take
right?
all the good
Yeah,
land, including
yeah,
Colombo,
yeah,
which is probably the Sinhalese. So they're like, no. So
yeah.
that's what the war is.
Gotcha.
And then you had but the way that it's going, like right now in Sri Lanka, you have Tamils, Sinhalese, Muslims, Hindus, and all that stuff. Everybody's, and Buddhists, Christians, they're all living together in Sri Lanka without issue, right? There are multiple ethnic backgrounds in Sri Lanka, right?
Hmm.
To the outside world, we may all look the same, but we're not,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah.
Uh, if you go to what's happening in Palestine, because of the way that the whole Zionism thing seems to be working, it's and the way that they're treating the Palestinians, it's not like early times when the Palestinians just left. They're like ducks sitting in a barrel, and it's going to probably turn into genocide at this point.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like how, I mean, if you have a peaceful solution, you should be able to. If we can have a peaceful solution, that's the best alternative, of course, right?
Yeah,
And like, I mean, like we said, I'm sure in other podcasts, right? Like, I mean, peace and love really is the solution.
that'll be the ideal solution. Yes.
Right, but how do you do that? And there's lots of conflating ideas, and they're subjected to the same stuff we're subject to: media, propaganda, all that shit, right?
Mhm.
So I wonder, I mean, I feel bad for the average Israeli, average Palestinian. What are they thinking? What are they seeing on TV? What are they, you
Yeah.
have to take care of their family, that's it. Like,
I
it's
agree
scary.
with a lot with the a lot of the folks here in Canada who are both Palestinians and Israeli folks who are coming together and actually, uh, protesting for peace and a ceasefire, right?
Yes, exactly. Let's
Together,
talk,
joint.
let's talk. Yeah.
So, it's the issue is Hamas and the Israeli government,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
All right. Well, I think good start. Good first start to get back in the books here, Des.
yeah.
Again, we're not going to solve the world's problems overnight, but hey, we'll start. This is our start.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks again, Des. Thanks everybody for watching. Let us know in the comments. What do you think of this? If you have any ideas or
Yep.
all that
Make
stuff.
sure to leave a like, subscribe, and we'll see you all guys in the next video.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for joining in and watching Centerville Voice. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you are seeing this on YouTube, make sure you click on the notifications bell so you get notified when we upload new videos, which we release every Friday. Sharing and liking our videos helps promote the channel, and sharing episodes like these helps get the word out so that more people will get to see our videos. If you like what you see and or hear, please consider becoming one of our Patreon supporters. 10% of all Patreon supporter donations we receive goes to our charity of the year. You can visit us at centervillevoice.com to learn more and engage with us on one of our social media pages. Thanks for your support, and we will see you again in our next video or podcast.